Okay, we are recording, so don't forget to use the raise hand feature to ask your question and get them in. And Don, it's all you.
Okay, I want to welcome all the new people. We keep getting new people, and I want to give a big thanks to Mr. E and our moderators for making this, the Fat Bee Man group, one of the better groups. I've been kind of cruising around. There's a lot of people talking about the group here, and they all want to get on it all the time. But they think it has to be free, so they want to watch it as a repeat, I guess, on YouTube. But the Facebook page is basically set up for you to learn, ask questions. I ask people not to advertise unless you are one of my students and you're selling my stock. And we have a list of rules on there, and kindly abide by them. It's not to promote other people's bees or other people's ideas. Share your ideas, but I see a lot of people like to post buy bees from this person, that person, and you people would assume that I'm giving that recommendation. I would rather you just get on the home page and check and see if there are students of mine, they have my stock. And I'm happy to say we're going to probably include about 3, maybe 4 more states that I have potential students that's in the process of getting their bees and will be selling. And I know everybody's kind of anxious to hear what states they are. I have one person that's real serious and has sent a check in and hasn't picked his bees up, and he's going to be in New York. So possibly 2, maybe 3 people in New York, 1 in Pennsylvania, and 1 in Oklahoma. And hopefully, maybe within the next year, I'll have students in every state where it won't be a big deal to drive, pick up bees. And this is being basically our last chat of this year. So we got a new year coming up, and everybody's got lots of questions, I know. So we have a lot of our students that get a chance to get in the chats, and some don't get a chance to get in here, but we have them listed on our Facebook page and the web page. And if you need web service, design, or any help, Mr. E is pretty good at doing that. That's what he does. So let's start with our questions. I know there's a lot of people been kind of asking on my page there about getting into the selling of the bees, how hard it is, and if it's worthwhile. And we get a lot of people say, no, you're not going to make any money at it. But everybody says the same thing. They ain't making money, but they're driving new cars, new trucks.
Got no questions yet. Everybody's being shy tonight already.
John's got a question. I can tell. He's sitting on the edge of his seat.
Oh, Greg's got a question. Go ahead, Greg.
I just wanted to chime in there and say that when Don says his bees sell themselves, that's the truth. We haven't had any problem with folks getting a hold of us to order some bees from Don. So we're looking forward to sending that check in this week down there to get our bees sold. But with all the work that Don does and all the free videos and all the time he puts into supporting beekeepers and keeping some of the old time ways of passing on the knowledge and not doing things cheaply, but doing things smartly with common sense. I think a lot of folks want to support that message and support those bees. So thanks again, Don, for everything that you do. It makes it easier on us, the beginners, and also folks who are getting in there and trying to sell your bees. You do all the work for us, it seems like. So thanks. Appreciate it.
Well, the door I'm trying to open for, a lot of people, I guess, talk to some of the people and say it's so hard to get in. But basically, if you're a student, the door is open. The groundwork is already laid for you. The bees will sell themselves. And, put the time in, put the work in, they'll sell. And I know sometimes we get students that they expect to be in competition with some of my students that's been in business or selling my bees 5 or 10 years. I've seen more than one say, I can't sell bees. And within the second year, they say, I can't keep up. I can't make enough boxes, can't sell enough stuff. So that's, That's why we do these chats. So you don't have to hear it from me. You can listen to other students and see what they're doing.
Okay. Over to Chris. Go ahead, Chris.
Hey, Don, you mentioned sending some bees to New York. I'm in New York. Is your guy going to be making a run up here with that, or is that guy coming down to pick up the bees?
He's coming to pick up the bees and he's going to sell the bees there. So I'm not saying what town he's in, but I think he's about mid part of the state.
Gotcha. Okay, that's it. Thanks, Don.
Okay. I got Chris is going to have a question in a second, though. He's typing it out for me, so I don't have anybody else yet. Come on, John, you got to have a question. What do you got going on? Can't hear you. No, no microphone. No microphone tonight or something. Well, we'll come back. All right. Nobody else? Ernest got to have a question. Come on, Ernest. It's all you. Hang on, I can't unmute him. There you go, Ernest.
How about now?
Go ahead.
Yeah, Don, I just wonder if you feed any pollen. I had bees flying today. It's 47 degrees, and I put out dry pollen, and they took about 3, maybe 4 pounds of pollen.
Is it your bees or is it field bees from other places?
Yeah, John's bees. Hi.
Yeah, well, that's what you have to do. Feed them.
Yeah, they were.
The thing I would worry about is don't feed too much pollen right now where you're at, because if you stimulate that queen and you have a really cold snap comes in January, you know, you're going to lose a lot of bees because they're going to cluster tight. That's the biggest problem we have on the years that we have mild winters. People get spring fever, I might say, and they start getting anxious. In fact, my son asked me about putting pollen patties, and I said, I'd wait at least the 3rd week in January. But this is basically a learning thing, and I'm no expert. So where you're at and where I'm at and people in Florida is 3 different locations. So you're going to have to know your weather and whether you want to take a chance. Personally, I don't think I would want to feed pollen to the earliest, the 3rd week in January.
So I figure if they were out looking for something and, you know, searching, you know.
Well, they'll search. I had bees out flying at my place here, but I didn't go up and see if they're pulling any pollen in. But you can encourage them to pull pollen, but that also, it'll stimulate that queen. Now, sugar, you know, feeding the sugar out or sugar patties is not going to stimulate that queen like that. It'll keep them from starving and keep them alive, but when you start to stimulate the queen with pollen patties or dry pollen, you run that risk of them expanding out, because if you have a week of nice warm weather, they start laying like crazy. Then when they cluster tight, you're going to lose bees. I've seen it over and over.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm trying. So we'll see.
You just got to be patient.
Yeah. But it's supposed to be 60-some degrees, I think, tomorrow or the next day.
That's what I'm trying to get across. If we have a week of warm weather or even 10 days, and then it drops down a little bit, and then I have that upswing a little bit, I've seen bees really start multiplying in the 3rd and 4th week of January, and we have an awful cold snap, freezing in February. In fact, I think it was 4 years ago. Our bees was doing great in January. Red buds and the red maples came out, and frost hit them so hard it knocked all that honey out. So basically, it's a gamble. It's like predicting weather. You know, the weatherman, you think he's smart, but he's just using a book of averages. Looking at the weather, what it's been so many days for so many years, it gives you an average. Beekeeping, when you lose enough, you'll kind of have that, you know, pause a little bit.
Well, we didn't get the goldenrod this year because every time it would it would rain about time it would get dry enough that together it'd come another rain, and
Right.
they never got the pollen and never got the nectar. So a lot of my hives is really light.
Oh yeah, they're going to be light if you don't have the pollen in there. It's just something you're going to have to decide and make that decision, you know.
Mm-hmm.
If they're flying, there's usually, like right now, it's been raining here. It's like monsoon all the time. We had 5-6 inches of rain. It was flooding up there in Atlanta. There's some stuff out there. There's some asters that hasn't froze up yet. And there's dandelions. There's a few other little plants. But I just let nature take its course and don't try to stimulate them in January. I get impatient too. Really, believe me, I do. So, you know, you learn when it gets in your pocket, you know, to sit back and wait. Bees have to go through a hibernation period or a slowdown period. And now that the solstice is started or that's gone by, the bees are naturally going to increase a little bit. But don't get impatient. That impatience can cost you some money.
Okay. That's all I have now.
Okay.
Okay. Over to George. Go ahead, George.
Hey, speaking of winter and breaking down the hives, if you have 2 brood boxes and 2 honey supers, how do you start getting all the bees back down into the single brood box to go through the winter?
Where do you live?
South Carolina.
Well, you're still warm enough. Do it on a warm day. You can take an empty super, put it over your box, pull one box off or 2 boxes and shake them into that empty super. It acts like a funnel. But, you know, you're going to have to make sure that you don't have no brood up there.
Okay.
See, what you do is if you've got 3 boxes, there are 2 brood chambers and a honey box, what you do is take an empty super, set it on top of the box, and then take 1 frame at a time. Shake all the bees into the super. It acts like a funnel. They don't fly all over the place.
Oh, okay.
And then when they migrate down, just take that super off.
All right. Appreciate it.
Okay?
Okay, Chris has a question, but his microphone isn't working, so I'm going to ask it for him. He says, with the warm weather here in Georgia, is there a correlation of more pests, such as we have with mosquitoes and warm winters, so we need to be more aware this year of pests?
Well, if we don't get a really good freeze, we are going to have more pests, but that's another reason we haven't had the cold weather. And by putting pollen patties on, you're liable to get that cycle of those small hive beetles really going.
Does that answer your question, Chris? He's going to type it.
I've seen a couple people posting pictures. They had screen bottom boards on and they had 1 cement block over the ground and they was losing bees. If you're going to run screen bottom boards, I would say get them up at least a knee high because you get so much radiation of moisture up off the ground. It just goes up through that screen. There's simple things that people run screen bottom boards and forget to put an insert in there. So you got all that moisture coming up. If you're going to run them, you're going to have to close it off and be sure you get those entrance reducers in. I'm already seeing people sending me messages that I had 2 hives real strong and 1 is gone, completely gone, but it's robbed out, you know. So bees right now, they're like bandits. They'll go around and they'll round it up.
Okay. Greg has a question again. Go ahead, Greg.
Hey, Don, most folks are probably aware that you have the Hive build plans on your website that they can download when they want to build their own equipment and help save money that way. If you're building travel nukes, would you shave off any of that inside dimension on a 5 frame so they're a little snugger for transport?
I personally wouldn't do it because you have to always think about resale later.
Okay.
What I usually do on a standard 5 frame box is you can get you a piece of 3/4 board, just cut it into a piece like an entrance reducer about 5 inches long, slide all the frames to one side just for travel purposes and wedge that 3/4 board in there.
Just cut your little
Sometimes
shim. Okay.
Yeah, sometimes you might have to use an inch. Now, sometimes the best thing to do is save some old queen cages and just take your hive tool and pry all the frames to one side and put that the queen cage right in the middle there. That'll give you all the support you want. But if you do, now when we ship our 5-frame shipping boxes, we make them 8.5 wide, which we don't have to wedge them then. But for a person building stuff up to reuse, it doesn't work out good because they fit too snug.
That makes sense. Cut it the same size so you can put it out in the yard and keep everything.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Thanks, Don.
Okay.
Sometimes it's just simple things, people don't think.
And Jim, I don't think Jim has a microphone tonight, so I'm going to ask his question too. It says, will the bees start increasing without a pollen source? We have no nectar or pollen until around mid-February.
They're going to increase some, but they're not going to notice big amounts. Right now, you should be seeing patches at least 2 to 3 frames, of at least the size, of a softball or grapefruit. That would be normal right now. Now, it's going to depend on the area. I've already got people showing me pictures of bees along the Florida line and then down in Florida running 3 full frames or 3.5 full frames of brood right now.
Okay. No other questions. Everybody's being super shy tonight. I'm going to start calling people. Oh, Henry has a question. Go ahead, Henry. Oh, hang on. Can't unmute you. Try it on your end. There you go. Go ahead, Henry.
Hey, Don.
Hey.
What ingredients do you put in for to make your pollen patties?
Well, you can use soy flour, or you can use cornmeal. We use yeast. It's like baker's yeast, or you can use brewer's yeast. I don't have the formula right down because we make it up in big batches, or sometimes we just buy pollen patties already mixed.
Okay.
You buy the patties and you're going to feed early. A lot of the pollen patties are either 8-ounce patties or they're 1-pound patties. You need to cut them up in a minimum of 8 pieces because you want the pollen patty to be completely gone in 24 hours. If it takes more than that, the bees start to cluster. You can end up getting little beetles.
Right.
That's the biggest worry right now.
I know you got a YouTube on it, but I watched it so long ago, I can't remember.
I forget what I got up there. I mean, there's, that's the one thing I hate to keep repeating a lot of these videos over and over, but right now there's way over 400 up there right now. I guess we need to pull some of them down. Don't make it so cluttered.
I got 10 more to go.
Okay.
Thank you.
Oh, still at a standstill here.
Everybody's waiting for somebody else.
John's got a question. Go ahead, John. Oh, hang on. There you go. Still can't hear you. Nothing. Check your microphone or type it out to me if you want. And we'll go over to Patricia. Go ahead, Pat.
Hi, everybody.
Hey.
Good to see everybody. Just a couple of comments. I have screen bottom boards, and I have my hives about 18 inches off the ground, and my frames are similar to the ones that I think E has plans on the website for. They're just, rectangular shaped wooden frames up about 18 inches off the ground. We do it for a couple of reasons: for the skunks so they can't get into them, and also moisture seeps in up off the ground. So if you got them up a little bit higher, you don't have any problem. I have a solid north wind break, so I don't have to worry about cold wind, howling through there. But I never ever close up my hive. And the reason I wanted to say that is they get used to what's their little ecosystem inside that box. And then you think, oh, it's going to be really bad weather for a couple of days. I'm going to stick that sign in and close up that bottom. It completely messes up their little world. If you're going to close it, make it solid, put it in early in the fall and leave it in until spring. Don't put it in, pull it out randomly, because you'll mess with them too much. We've got insulation board in the lid, so it helps cut down on moisture buildup with their condensation from their breath. But I never lose bees in the winter with my screen bottom boards open. And we get down, we'll have a week or so of maybe freezing, you know, we'll get snow and ice storms and that kind of thing. But the other thing was with the pollen substitute, like Don said, be real careful this time of year, because what happens is everybody gets excited. We get a little bit of warm weather, happens every year randomly. So everybody wants to start feeding and making all the bees happy. You put that pollen out there and they think they're fat and happy. They go raise and brood. And then we get a snowstorm move through and they don't have enough adult bees to cover that brood. You're going to get chilled brood, cold brood's dead brood. So be real reluctant on that, because right now, as cold as it's been here, I've got henbit, which is a little purple flower that they get a bright orange, almost a reddish color pollen in their little pockets. And you'll see that coming in. We've got dandelions blooming, got all kinds of weeds that you don't even realize it's out there. If they can get out to get some of it, they will, and it's just enough for them to get along with. Be careful with pollen substitutes. It can really hit you and you'll lose hives. So that's all.
Okay. You want to add anything to that, Don?
She's got it covered there pretty much. That's what I keep trying to tell people. They get too anxious. I believe, you know, and I have a lot of old ways about me. I like to let bees do their natural thing. And if, you know, if you're down further south, you can kind of combat it by feeding them sugar water. You can feed them pollen. You're not letting them go through their natural cycle. You're causing them to lay a lot more. But most people above the Mason-Dixon line, they have to be really careful. I know I had gotten some really bad information when I first started bees when I lived in Ohio, and I made some terrible mistakes. And I've had people make remarks, how much did I really know and everything. It's not that I know that much, it's a little experience. I went through the school of hard knocks, and when you lose something, you pay more attention than if you just, you know, it's just hard to explain to people that you have to go through that learning curve. You have to make those mistakes, and people will give you advice, and sometimes you have to look at it, think about it twice. And I run across people all the time. They'll say, well, so-and-so told me this, and so-and-so, what do you think? I tell them, if you want to be successful, take advice from successful people that's been in it, doing it for a while, and has good, you know, results with it. You know, I get people all the time come up with some cockamamie new ideas on everything. It just sometimes just don't make sense. I think they just bounce these things off. You see how you're going to react.
Okay. Steve has a question.
Hey.
Go ahead, Steve.
Hey, Don.
Hey.
Let's say perfect world scenario. I've got several hives that go through winter. They do great. When should I expect to need to put supers on? I'm in the Houston area.
You're in the Houston area?
Yes.
Well, the thing you have to decide is, are you going to try to make numbers up, or you want to make honey?
Both.
Both?
Well, I plan on splitting my apiary in half, one for bee production and one for honey.
Okay. What I usually try to do, if you're going to run 10-frame hives, if you're covering really 7 to 9 frames, and then, you know, you look at your frames. If they're pretty well laid up or pretty well full of honey, put your box on. Then another thing is, if you're going to be running honey, if you're running queen excluders, I particularly don't care for them, but if you're going to do it and you're running 10-frame or even 8-frame, I would run 2 deeps, then your queen excluder.
Okay.
I'm a firm believer in nature. I think the queen knows how high and how much stuff's coming in to where she's going to lay brood. And that's the #1 question a lot of times people ask me. Well, why don't you put a queen excluder on? I don't want brood in my honey. And I ask them, well, what do you want? Do you make bees or do you want to make honey? And they say, well, I want honey. I said, well, smarter thing, instead of putting a queen excluder on, put an extra box on. The queen will stop when she knows where she wants to stop. Even if you get a brood up there, you can put it above another box of honey, and then as that hatches out, you can extract that honey. It's not going to hurt a thing.
All right, thank you.
That's just the way I look at it, you know.
Sure.
But there's people that run what they call unlimited brood chambers. There's people that, I know a lot of people run single storage with queen excluders. You know,
Yeah, I didn't run any this coming year, and I didn't have any issues. And even if I did, I mean, I could always take that frame and just move it down.
yeah. The thing that I always try to tell people, you know, they're not that complicated. They do two things. They multiply and they store honey. And I don't care where you're at. If they're not multiplying, you better check close. You might have a mite problem, knocking populations down. You could have a really good queen, and if you got a mite problem, they're hauling out immature larvae or in different stages because they're hygienic bees. So you have to kind of look at your problem. I hope that answered it.
I guess so. Over to Anthony. Go ahead, Anthony.
Hey, Don. Hello,
Hey.
everybody.
Can barely hear you. Speak up a little bit.
I'm sorry. How about that? Is that better?
A little bit better.
All right, here, wait a minute. Maybe I can turn my volume up more. Okay. When I service my hives, I do it from the back, and I never have any problem. I never have any bees around me. It's no problem. But maybe the last couple of times when I was out there, I noticed that I got bees flying up in front of me and flying up by my face. And I'm wondering, what the hell is going on? This never happened before. Well, what they discovered is they're using the 1/4-inch hole that I drilled for the Provape. They discovered that hole, so they've been going in and out of that hole. And then I'm wondering, well, okay, I can see one bee doing it, but then how do they all catch on? Do they communicate?
Oh, yeah.
Do they do it because they see one do it?
Well, they're using it as an entrance to the hive, but yeah, bees pass on the information real quick.
Yeah. Well, I taped up the 1/4-inch hole because I don't want them flying up in front of me when I'm back there. But I just thought it was kind of cool that they they found their alternative entrance.
If you got some kind of a honey flow on, they're not basically going to sting you. You're in the flight path, and all they're doing is just bumping into you. That's
Yeah,
all.
mine are extremely calm. I never have a problem with mine, and I don't wear anything but glasses. And mine are bringing back pollen really good right now, and they really shouldn't be at this time of year. But we get these little white. It's a weed, but they look like daisies. They got white petals and yellow centers, and they're pretty small. But boy, the bees really love them.
That sounds like asters.
That might be. I don't know what flowers are which, but.
Well, you mentioned you work your bees sometime with glasses on. You know, most people don't realize it. If you can't see working the bees and you do wear glasses, the best thing to do is get a pair of safety goggles and put over your glasses, because the bees will get up behind your glasses and they're not really going to sting you, but they're flying back and forth. And they bump the glasses a few times and it kind of gets them aggravated, and they'll sting you around your eyes. So I thought I'd pass that on, because sometimes people mention something, it jogs one of my files in my head there, and it comes ahead.
Well, that's just what I'm using is safety glasses.
Yeah, right.
And these are safety glasses that have side shields on them.
Yeah,
I don't put them side, but you know, just gradually over time, I got to where, you know, I work my bees without any protection, because I look at you and JP the bee man and all these other people that work bees with no protection. And then I thought, well, my bees aren't any different than your bees. And then, you know, I lost the gloves, and then I lose the veil, and I really never have a problem. But I do believe and recommend, at least in my way of thinking, is at least wear safety glasses, because it seems like if the bee's going to sting you, the first place he's going to sting you is in your eye. How many people do we see post a picture with their eyes swollen shut? So I believe in protecting your eye, but you know, for the rest of it, it's okay.
You just got to get used to it. Rather than safety glasses, I guess what I meant to tell people is to wear goggles over the top of your regular glasses. That way you got a full shield there.
Yeah.
The safety glasses, they're open at the top here. They just got side protect, but the goggles will actually fit over the top of a pair of reading glasses.
Yeah. It's
A lot of times, you know, people don't realize if they first start out working with gloves, the gloves are stung so much. I've had people come here and I can put my chin on a hive and never get stung. And they say, why ain't the bees stinging you? I said, lay your glove on top of the hive. And before they can get their hand away from the glove, there's dozens of bees on that glove. So I think sometimes the pheromones from the stinging, that the pheromone alarm odor, I think it just stays in there no matter what you do to it.
Yeah, and it's not for everybody. And, you know, I also think it's more important that you're comfortable when you're working the bees.
Right.
Physically and mentally, but I just I enjoy it more. I'm more comfortable with it without wearing anything, and especially picking up the frames. There's a big difference of picking up a frame with gloves on and without gloves on. So I like it that way, you know. And fortunately, mine I can't remember the last time I got stung, so we're pretty good. All right, I'll let someone else ask a question. Thank you.
Okay, over to Patricia. Go ahead, Pat.
Well, it was a little comment, something Don said about crazy ideas all over the place. And a lot of those crazy ideas come from bee clubs. And I love my bee club dearly. But you get one guy that thinks he knows a lot and he starts teaching the class. And so everybody starts asking him questions. And he repeats what he thinks he heard. And you repeat what you think you heard. And it gets so changed around. It's like that old telephone game you used to play where you see how the story ends up at the end of the line. And I tell all of my students, pick a mentor, and no matter what you hear, go back and ask them before you apply it to your bees, because a lot of times you'll hear things and you're like, oh, well, I got to go home and do that today because so-and-so said so, and then your bees die. You know, if you just wait and consider it, call your mentor, call Don, post it on the Facebook page so you can get some answers that are more reliable, especially when you get into more than, 10 hives. Things are different. And so you got to be careful about what you hear at Bee Club. That's all.
We have, quite a few good monitors here, and we have quite a few of our good students that has followed my ways. And I have noticed over the last year, when we get a new person comes into the group and they start making remarks and stuff that don't sound right, they'll correct them. So, I mean, we are here to help each other. And if we can't keep a civil thing about it, we just need to be like everybody else with their groups. That's one of the things that makes me proud that when I'm cruising around and I get on other people's groups and they're talking about this group, how great it is, And I think it's just a bunch of guys that want to get together and share their knowledge is what it is.
Okay. Jim has a question. He wants to know, are you changing from your hive top feeders to bucket feeders? Is it easier, cheaper, or problems with colder weather?
Well, basically it's time. Time rules everything anymore. The hive top feeders, they work great. I mean, you could go up to probably 50 hives. They have many good points about them. But here's the problem that we are running into running commercial yards. We have to get the service out of them. And when you mix sugar water up and you put it in there, especially with essence of oils, the screens on the feeder ladder are deteriorating and they're lasting anywhere from 2 years and sometimes 1 year. So it sounds like maybe it's trivial, but add up making 50 to 200 new ladders, to just keep up what you got. And then it's so much easier to do the buckets, and then you've got less material because we're changing and we're basically evolving for the past since 89, 90. There's so many things that's changed. I did a video just on all the different increases and changes on hive top feeders. But we're doing volumes now to where it's not practical time-wise to build the hive top feeder, where you can buy buckets and throw it on there and you got an extra 3 days of feeding there. And then migratory lids is my favorite. I love them, but it's just an extra minute or 30 seconds per lid to put a migratory lid on there versus the telescoping lid. You know, a lot of people that's running, you know, up to 50 hives, you know, they laugh about it. Well, that's trivial. But, you know, they're not thinking hundreds, 200, 500 feeders, then 500 lids, 500 bottoms. I mean, time adds up. I mean, I can build frames. I've done it for years. Would I build them today? Oh, I know I wouldn't build them today. I buy them by the pallet. You buy in volume, you buy them so much cheaper. You can buy materials. You can buy anything that you need to buy. You cannot buy anywhere on sale your time. So you only got so many days, so many minutes to get things done.
Don, do you think that changing the screens out to like the fiberglass insect screens would do any better?
Well, I'm glad you brought that up. We sold a bunch of nukes to a fellow that come here from southern Carolina over towards the coast. And it was like maybe a 7-hour drive. He got 50 nukes and he come in a closed van. Guess what happened? He put that vinyl screen on all the entrances and the lids. He had a truckload full of bees.
Wow.
Those rascals chew that stuff up. The only thing I think, but it wouldn't be cost effective, is stainless steel. We're using that hardware cloth, which is a galvanized zinc. It just don't have a long lifespan to it. We've tried over the years house wire. We've tried, there's a black screen wire that we use on the cages. That holds up better, but it clogs up. So there's a lot of times you got to weigh the good points to the bad points on everything you're doing.
Okay, just want to double check before somebody suggested that. Over to Dennis. Go ahead, Dennis.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yep.
We'll hear you.
Don, did you find a good place to buy the cheaper buckets, the feeders?
No, I think the cheapest we found is about $2.60 for gallon buckets. And then it's like 56 cents per the lids. Now that ain't counting the insert. You have to drill those lids for a pour spout.
Yeah. You don't just drill little holes in them and get by, or you think it better the other way?
Well, we've tried them both.
Okay.
The problem that we have, you got to get the smallest drill bit that's in your drill box, but it's basically a little too big. So I've got what they call a master drill bit set. It's like it covers metric sizes, drill sizes, wire sizes. And the one I'm using that I'm having good luck with is I'm putting 2 holes in. It's about the size of a drill bit that the dentist would use. It's like the smallest bit that's in a standard box, about half that size. It's really small. Now, the drawback to that is you got to drill really slow because the drill bit's so thin, the wax, the plastic will build up in there and it causes enough heat and it busts the darn drill bit. So if you buy a pack of them, I think you can buy them 10 in a pack at a time.
Okay, and for the guy that had the queen excluders, I use open boxes, let her crawl up as far as she wants. They'll backfill it when they brood God, and saves me a lot of trouble. And someone says, well, I don't like that. But I've never had a bit of problem with it. You can always move the frames up as you need to, unless you're making comb, and then you can still don't need one. But I've never had any problem. Only problem it would save is maybe with wax moths later as you're storing them, but I don't have any problem with that. So worked out better for me. That's all I got, Don. Thank you.
I don't know if anybody here has come across people that's come to your bee yard that actually want to buy a frame of honey. We've had several people doing that, and I actually had a guy come here and did classes yesterday, and we was teaching them because it was raining here. We was building wax, so when we making foundation, we get a lot of time to do a lot of talking and that. And he was selling his frames for 20 bucks on a small one, shallow. And I looked at him, I says, "What's the matter with your honey?" He said, "Well, what do you charge?" I said, "I sell mediums. If I pull a frame of honey out, it's $100 per frame." So that's going to be, the reason I do these chats is to give you an idea of what, other things. And we was talking about pollinating. He said he's got bees on a farm. He's got 20 hives there, and he's getting $25 a hive. And he's given a case of honey. I says, "What?" I said, you're not negotiating that right. First of all, if you put your bees on an organic farm, you're pollinating, you're doing them a service. The maximum is a quarter to. And, I charge a minimum of 75, plus it's got to be 20 hives or better. You can't take 2 hives here. Now, the exception to that is I will put bees on an organic farm if it's a good location, no pesticide. I'll leave them there for $150, but it's a year-round location with good access and good protection. So a lot of the stuff here is negotiable on beekeeping. So I thought I'd put that out there because a lot of people, those are questions that a lot of people will give you dozens of answers. If you talk to another beekeeper, "Oh, well, I'm getting $200 a hive for pollinating," so they don't want you to get their pollinating jobs. So there's a lot of misinformation out there, misguiding. They should all be called magicians. Sleight of hand.
All right. Mary has a question. She doesn't have her camera on. Let me see. Go ahead, Mary.
Hi, I have a question about the bucket feeders. When you finish feeding with them, do you plug the hole, or are you actually changing the migratory top to a telescoping one for the winter?
Well, you basically could use either one. When you was up here, I probably did show you some of the older styles where I had I had telescoping lids with a hole drilled in the top, and I had a Coca-Cola can covering the hole. I don't know if you remember seeing those.
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
I didn't know that was what they were for. Okay.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of stuff in my yard that's old like me. It should be discarded, but there's a lot of ways to feed them. But another thing is you can use buckets you get from the bakery. It just takes time to collect them. They're 2-gallon buckets, and there's a little recess placed on the bottom of the bucket. Those are ones that I've been using, and I'm using 2 holes in there. But make sure that you fill them all the way up, or if you fill them halfway, you got to hold them over another bucket or something and bleed them out so where they pull the vacuum, because they're going to drip until the vacuum is pulled on them.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Okay. Let's see. Chris has another question I'm going to ask. I bought a hog half comb kit for 1 hive to try. Can I put that on right away when the flow starts, or should I let them work a box of regular frames first, then put the half comb kit in?
I would put them on after you had a good major honey flow, and if you got a super partially filled with honey, I would set it on top. But let me interject one thing about, and I'm not cutting anybody's product down. If you want to make comb honey, don't waste money on hog halves. If you're going to go that route, go Ross rounds. And I know everybody's going to throw their hands up. What's wrong with that crazy old man now? Let me explain to you, dollars and cents. If they don't draw all the frames out good on hog halves, it's a plastic type frame. Whatever they don't draw out, you're going to throw away. But you could go to your bee yard with a van on Ross rounds and pull out 3 frames in the middle, and the outsides are not full. Slide them to the middle, put new wax in a new frame, or change your frame out, because Ross rounds, you pop the frame apart and you pull the center out, put your new wax and new rings in there and put it back. You're back in business. The cost to produce it is a lot less. If you got a really heavy honey flow, you still got to cut those hog halves apart. I don't think appealing wise there is appealing as Ross rounds. So there's 2 or 3 companies out that's doing the same kind of takeoff on it. My experience, and I'm not promoting anybody's product, the Ross Grounds is far better. And Ross Grounds wholesale will bring you $12.50 all day long. And here's a trick most people don't even think about. I live in North Georgia. I produce orange blossom honey here, and people say, hey, that ain't possible. Well, you know, if you buy a barrel of orange blossom honey and you put 2 gallons of the orange blossom honey over the feeder on a 5-frame or an 8-frame box, the excess honey, they're going to draw Ross Grounds super fast, and it's going to taste like orange, and you've got your bottom box built out for almost free. So you figure it out. 5 frames at $12.50 a piece, you're taking honey that you buy bulk like that, even if you bought 5-gallon buckets. Orange blossom honey goes between $2.25 and $3. So if you got $3 and you're selling it for $25 a pound, and you tell me you're not making money, you're not going to go to heaven.
All right, over to Anthony again. Go ahead, Anthony.
Yeah, just back to what Pat was saying about, and I think Dawn said the same thing about things that just keep getting repeated over and over again and taken as gospel. One thing is smelling like a banana or anything to do with bananas does not trigger defense in the bees. That's a myth. And I also, from my experience, I don't see where dark clothes bothers them either. I frequently am in black shorts and a black t-shirt, and I don't see any difference if I'm wearing a white t-shirt or a black t-shirt. The bees don't care.
The only thing that I've seen is bees will go after movement, or they can smell fear. Those are 2 things. And as far as bananas, I've heard that all my life. And I had probably 15 students here one time was telling me, don't eat bananas in the bee yard. I got a banana, I ate it, put my chin on a beehive. The bees didn't bother me.
Correct.
I mean, there's a lot of misinformation out here.
Yeah. I think black clothes is the same one. Some of my videos of me in a black t-shirt and black shorts, and I've never had a problem. So there's probably a few others I can't think of right now, but yeah, things just keep getting repeated and it's taken as gospel. But okay, go ahead. Next.
Nobody's got their hand up right now.
Somebody has to have
Feel
something.
free to chime in. Oh, there we go. Jeff's got a question. Go ahead, Jeff.
See if I can unmute it. Can you hear me?
You're good. Yep.
Oh, I am. Okay. First of all, I found this for Anthony. He's got he needs a bee crossing sign. I'll send it to you, Anthony, if you need it down there. No, I was going to mention, since a lot of the questions have been exhausted, I was going to make a couple observations. I've had, for 2 months now, we've had, this is my 2nd year of my pilot project for enclosure for the bees in a heated, insulated enclosure. So they're up to 2 months now, 6 hives, 2 are nukes, 1's a swarm, 3 others are, they've built through the year. They all seem to be doing fine right now. Moisture level, they've been holding a constant temperature in there, right around in the neighborhood of 40, sometimes 42. The humidity levels gradually decreasing since I've got wood chips in there that suck up a lot of the moisture around the hives. And I'll probably be introducing sugar boards to 2 of them here this next week. But so far, they're so good. We're probably looking at, and when you talk about pollen, I never put pollen out there until, what, March. So we'll see how well they maintain through the next couple months in their in confinement zone. But, I mean, the comparative feature here is right now we got like 27-mile-per-hour winds outside, 13 degrees, probably that'd be about an 8, 10 below wind chill. So we've been running those type of temperatures and then up a day to 50. So but whereas the temperature in the confinement area is relatively constant. The only shifts I've noticed have been in humidity level. You got humidity that migrates into the shed, you know, through the cracks and stuff. But otherwise, been stable.
Do you feeling a lot better about losses now?
Yeah, I think so. We'll see. The nukes I'm kind of curious about. I got 2 frames with honey that I've held off for those. I'm going to see if I can get in and do that without doing too much disturbance to them. I can elevate the temperature, or I can, you know, make it a quick surgical removal of 1 frame and put 1 else in. I'll probably put a screen over the area where they're clustered, so to kind of keep them confined while I'm doing their change out.
You running these 10 frame and you run them close to the ground, or are you up off the ground?
Oh, no. The shed itself is off the ground, and but with a skirt around the shed.
Mm-hmm.
The enclosure has, and then on the floor, they're on. I have them on pallets. They have wheels, so I can put them in there with a tractor and move them around. And so they're about, they're probably in the neighborhood of 1.5 feet or so from the floor of the shed, minimum. Some are more. And then I have about several inches of wood shavings on the floor. So that way it's easier for me to, you know, remove any dead bees or whatever. You know, there's moisture with dead bees too. So I can just shovel them out, and then I just replace the wood chips.
Are you going to try to order you some queens to do some splits? Like you probably won't split anyhow until 1st of April, will you?
Oh, I'll be lucky if I get probably about 1st of May.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I'll probably
be a lot further ahead than you normally have.
Oh yeah, big time. Yeah, big time. Yeah. No, the bees that make it through the winter here in that type of setting, when they come out, they're really, really strong, ready to go. But the problem is getting them repositioned. This last spring was pretty cold. It never really got warm here for getting them out of the enclosure until actually about mid-May.
When you say reposition, are you talking about when you finally move them outside?
Yeah.
You're going to leave them screened up outside for at least a couple days, aren't you?
Oh yeah. When I put them outside, I do it. I got to make sure the snow's done and electric fence up, because we got the bears come out about the same time. If I keep them in the shed, if it's warm enough, I can keep them in the shed, and I just keep the radio on, keeps the bears away.
How are you protecting from bears?
Electric fence.
How many are you going to try to overwinter out there, or do out there in the spring?
Oh, if I make it through the spring, I'll probably have, I'll have those original 6. If they make it through, then I'll probably order a couple more.
I'll tell you what, one of the fellows that buys bees from me, and he's had good luck. He's in bear country. Yeah. And what he's done is made him a steel ladder like they have in the schoolyards for the jungle gyms.
Yeah.
And it's 8 foot up off the ground. He greases the poles. He said it's inconvenient to work the hives. He says, but he has not had any bears get into his hives. He runs 6 hives to the stand.
What I found is I keep them strapped now. Okay. During that May, early June. I had a good bear I caught on camera. He was probably close to 250, 300 pounders, but never went into the screened in area. Remember, I'm running probably about 13 to 1500 volts through that wire.
Oh.
So if they hit it, they're going to know it.
I was going to say straps don't seem very secure, because I've seen them take boxes. We lost a yard where they went in. There's not much salvage to it. No frame is in one piece, or boxes is busted up or chewed up, or claws through it.
Yeah, I've seen that. They go through the brood. I've had them knock them over, but it's kind of interesting. Either they were interrupted or they got bored.
Or full.
Or full, but I've never really lost an appreciable number to bear. I mean, I've had them knocked over. And you got to keep in mind, the bears here are not necessarily. I mean, they go after the brood and that, but honeybees is not normally something that they're going to run into. Though, if they're there and they smell that honey or smell the brood,
yeah,
they'll go at it. Now, the ones that show up in the state of Maine in the blueberry fields, they're constantly being torn apart. If you want to catch swarms or recover bees, you just go down away from the blueberry fields down there and put your traps out, because these bears terrorize the hell out of these chaps bringing their bees in from outside the state.
you should be able to just get, well, it's like that in Florida when they take they usually take a couple hundred hives and they set them in the groves.
Yeah.
And when they pull them, looks like swarms hanging in trees, basketballs hanging everywhere. And if you went down there with, say, 10 hives, you could come back with 500 easy and just take one frame of brood or one frame of honey, put it in a box, just reach up and shake the bees into the box, and they're happy to go in there.
Oh yeah, that's true. I know there's a chap in Bangor, Maine. He's called the Bee Whisperer. He writes articles for the paper. He gets all his hives that way.
Mm-hmm. They're good. Free hives is always good.
Oh yeah, yeah. So anyway, that's where we're at on the current experiment here with the enclosure.
Yeah.
And the enclosure has an electric heat sensor, so if it gets below 38, 37, it'll pop on and pop off. And I keep a fan in there circulating the air around to give some air movement. So so far so good.
I think Israel was doing that out in Washington, but on a larger scale. He was doing like 500-600 hives out there.
Okay. Paul has a question. Nice of you to show up tonight, Paul.
Glad I made it. Hey, Don, how you doing?
Okay, how about you?
Don, I just want to say, if you ever get lonely, you can always call me. I'm happy to talk to you.
I posted that there, and I had so many people responded, but when they get into the chat, they get laryngitis.
Let me tell you, I lost my dad 7 years ago, and I wish I could talk to him and tell him what I accomplished these days. But in any case, like I said, I'll be happy to talk to you. And,
you mean I wouldn't bore you neither?
Forget it. Half of these kids today, they don't know what the hell's going on. All they want to do is play video games. But like Jeff was saying, as far as living in bear country, I've had a few bear attacks. I'm running 8,000 volts through my fence, and I left a little opening, and those bears, they knew exactly where the fence was, and they came right through. But what my question is tonight is, we all knew what the spring weather was like with all of the rain, and now the winter weather is just the same. One day it's 50 degrees, the next day it's 20 degrees. And how do you feel? Is that good for the bees? I mean, it's good that they can get out and take a cleansing flight, but how do you think that is with moisture in the hive?
Personally, I think there's going to be more bee losses probably January and February because of the light winter and people being anxious. And last year, or this past year now, it was not the greatest year. And we got too much rain. So bees are either going to be doing really good, or they're going to build to a point, and then we're going to get a heavy, heavy cold, and it's going to wipe out a lot of bees. Because everybody is thinking, well, the weather's, nice, we're going to start feeding. And I see a lot of people putting out a lot of pollen, and I hate to think about what's going to happen. They're going to be buying bees.
Yeah, that's what's worrying me, and I didn't get around to doing enough mite treatments as I should have, and I hope
bees
I don't
are like bears and everything else. They have to go through that period of, wintering and everything, and nature has to go its way. When you try to, change that, you run problems.
Yeah. I just get jealous when I watch all of the videos on your page there with all of the people down south, and they got bees flying around bringing in pollen this time of year.
Well, there's one fellow I talked to down below, it's about halfway down, I guess it's by Lakeland or Orlando. He's already in double deeps, and he's running about 12 frames of solid brood right now. And he sent me some pictures about it. And, beautiful, but down there, it's totally different. From here to South Georgia, the Florida line is like, in weather time, it's like 5 to 6 weeks. They're 6 weeks ahead of what I am right now. Because when I go down and start shaking bees in Waycross in March, there's things blooming down there that won't bloom here for about 3 to 5 weeks. So that's how we have to get our drones. We can graft in the first part of March, but if you don't have drones, you're not going to do nothing. So we go down there and we try to shake the bees through a queen excluder to get mostly drones for breeding purposes.
Yeah. So you think you'll have queens ready by mid-April?
Probably, I'm hoping first or second week in March, but from the orders that we got in there, I'm thinking right now March is going to be pretty well sold out. I don't have the book here. Steven's got more. He's been selling the hell out of bees. So there's so many people lost bees. They're getting orders in, and then it's like Greg and Mark and a lot of these other people, they're buying bees to haul north, and they're wanting them in as early as they can. But March, going up, above the Mason-Dixon line, to me is risky. I wouldn't go there till the 1st of April. I think we're going to have a bad cold spell come in. I can just feel it.
Yeah.
I've seen too many years where it looks so nice. And I did a video, or I was doing a chat, and I talked about that. We had weather similar to this, and I wanted to get a jump on it. And it was just before Easter. I made 75 Nuke splits. Let me tell you, I'm ashamed to tell you, I lost them all because we had a record Easter freeze, and I lost them all. So you got to be patient.
Well, that's the thing too up here in the north. You can get that you can get that early, that late frost. It'll kill the fruit bloom, and I'm sure that'll affect the bees greatly. But I just want to make some splits in the spring, and I'm probably going to order some queens from you.
Well, don't get too anxious. It's better to be a little bit more patient. I mean,
yeah.
You don't have no one pushing you, I mean, you're not selling bees. Here, it's a different story. I mean, that phone won't stop ringing by January, the end of January, February, it won't stop ringing. The only way it stops ringing, you got to turn it off.
Trust me, I would love to sell bees than honey, but, like my bees are 3 hours away from me, and I only get to see them 2 weeks. Every 2 weeks I get up to my house, but.
Your wife's not giving you visitation rights?
Now, let me ask you another question. How do you know, and this might be a stupid question, and I'm only in this for 2 years now, but how can you tell a good year from a bad year?
Well, the simplest thing is you look at your book. If it's red, you did bad. If it's black, you're doing better.
I mean, out of all of the weather that we had, the crazy weather this year, I would say it was a good year for me. I don't know. Maybe there'll be better years, So, but I guess it's like you said, it has to do a lot with record keeping.
Well, basically, if you're in it for a long period of time, what I've found, honey and brood cycles run in a cycle. We seem to have a really bumper year about every 6th or 7th year. And as far as selling nukes and queens and stuff, it seems like it's about every 3rd year on that. Maybe it's just me, maybe it's the way we do things. But, I noticed probably 5-6 years ago, we had more honey. I mean, I was just cussing every day. I couldn't get nothing done because I was moving honey rather than trying to make splits. I mean, and then there's years where you're constantly feeding.
Yeah.
So, take the good and, it's just like everything. When you're going into commercial beekeeping, I try to tell people, don't judge things your 1st or 2nd year. It's going to take 3 to 5 years to get stable in commercial beekeeping.
Yeah. Well, it's like with my hives. I mean, like I said, I'm 3 hours away from my hives. I have like a country house up in the mountains, but I left literally 100 pounds of honey on each hive. I'm not worried about feeding them through the winter because I'm sure that they have plenty of stores. But it just, if I could make some early splits in the spring and sell some nukes late spring, early summer, even doing that just to boost a little income, I'm wondering if I can even accomplish that, not being at my bees, 24 hours a day.
If you knew somebody in the same region, maybe Ernest is in a closer region than what you are, and get an idea how his are doing, and that'll give you an idea what you're doing, then still it's a gamble,
Yeah.
But I would wait till they're really good. I try to tell people, if you're going to make splits, watch the bees. The bees will tell you what's going on. When you start seeing a lot more drones being built up in there, it's giving you an idea. Then 2 to 3 weeks, you'll be in good shape.
Well, that's why I want to make my splits with mated queens. I don't want to wait for drones.
Well, that's just an indication that they're going to be getting ready to swarm.
Yeah.
But the idea is to catch them before that.
Yeah.
The thing to get early queens is going to be the problem, though. See, we had so much rain, we had so many catastrophes this year. I mean, up the East Coast, the Carolinas up, they're flooding out. California burnt, Texas, Louisiana all flooding. I mean, everybody's looking for bees. Right now, if it looks like a bee, it could be yellow jackets. They'll buy them if it looks like bees.
Yeah, and you're taking orders now for queens, or?
We've been taking, and I'm 2 months ahead of taking. We don't normally take our orders till February, but we've already booked in March pretty well already, and that's booked out in November. See, now this is the end of December, and we're starting to get our orders in for April now.
And if I place an order now, can I request a delivery date, or?
You're going to get an approximate date. The best thing to do is contact my son. His phone number's on there, or he got an email. You send an email to me, I forward it to him. I'm trying to hold my yard next year to basically training. I'm going to sell very few nukes here, very few queens, very few packages. I'll do what I have to do to teach. I'm trying to do more teaching because I don't know how many more years I'm going to walk the bee yard out there. And so I want to try to get as many people out there can pass on the techniques that I'm using to other people. I mean, that's the problem. Since I've lived here, a lot of good beekeepers died off.
Well, let's not talk about that. I know you're going to have some knee replacements. You're not dying yet, so. Don't even talk like that, because I don't even know what I'd do without this webpage, so.
Oh. It's nice to be wanted, needed.
All right, Don, that's it for tonight. Thank you.
All right.
Okay. Patricia, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to tell him, something really important to think about is it's really nerve-wracking when you're trying to get set up to sell bees and the club brings in 300 nukes and 400 packages and the guy down the road is going to bring in some, and you start to get a little bit of a panic swelling up. But I can assure you, if you have a quality product, people will wait.
Mm-hmm.
So it's more important to develop your beeline and your reputation and start practicing your sales pitch. Practice it on your wife, practice it on your neighbors, your brother, whatever, so that you're comfortable with what you're explaining to people. Because last year, my nukes didn't get delivered till the 1st of June, but I got people, my list is already filling up this year. I got people that rolled over from last year because I couldn't fill it. But if you've got a quality product, they're going to be willing to wait a few weeks. So don't panic. Don't let that become the sort of Damocles swinging over your head that you think it's going to get you before you can get ready. And especially with the shortages, like Don said, if you got a quality product, you won't have any problem selling out.
Well, that's the thing, Pat. I mean, do you, when you're first starting out, do you want to undersell your bees, or do you want to?
No. So, we said it, we figure out what we can do. Leon and I are getting old and wore out. Like Don, you get tired after a while. Walking that field gets to be a chore. The knees are the first thing to go. But you just decide what you're going to sell. And if you decide that you're going to sell 50 or 100 or 300, then let that be your goal. And if you know that you can't get your bees to make queens before the middle of May, then you tell your people and develop a sales pitch to explain why local bees are better. And even Don's stock, where you're located, is going to be better than hauling them up from Florida. So, explain that to people. Develop your sales pitch as to why it's good to get local bees, what the differences are, and what your product is. I've got Varroa sensitive hygienics, and that's a very big selling point. So those are important things to figure out what you're wanting to promote yourself as and how you're going to give your sales pitch, and stick with it. Tell people, it's going to be the middle of June or the middle of May or whatever, but this is going to be a quality product. I don't let them go until the queen's laying, and I know that when you take these bees home, if you do exactly what I tell you to do, you'll be successful. And people come to depend on that.
No, you're exactly right with that, because I realized that when I was selling honey at these, I was doing vendors nights at schools, and
yeah, that'll beat you to death.
but people don't realize the product that you're selling as far as buying honey, like in a supermarket or something.
No, they do.
It's not the
Absolutely.
same thing.
No, they will, because I went to Whole Foods. I sat out in front of Whole Foods many a day, and I went into grocery stores. I went into markets like you're talking about. And once people find out that you have real honey, I am 18 miles from the main road, and all I do is post on my Facebook page that I am bottling honey, and the cars come down the driveway. I don't have to go anywhere. But that's because you develop your reputation, and that's what you've got to come to depend on, and your sales pitch and your reputation, and it'll stand if you've got a good product. I charge $1 an ounce for honey. Some people charge a little more. The guy down the road sells it for $3 less. Thank you very much. I'm sure you'll enjoy his honey. Come back sometime and see me when you're interested. Don't lower your price, and don't argue with people, because when they know your product, you will not have to worry about it. You really won't. Don can tell you the same thing.
How much are you selling your honey for, Paul?
I'm getting $12 a pound here in New York.
No, sell it for $1 an ounce.
If somebody across the road is selling it the same size bottle for 10, what are you going to do?
Thank you very much. Come back.
Well, I'll tell you this much. I have the Facebook page, and I just started doing mail order, and I was skeptical about people spending that amount of money for honey, and then plus paying for the shipping. But I've realized that people do want a good product, and there are people out there willing to pay for the honey and shipping.
But they want to know you. They want to know the beekeeper that makes that honey. That's really important right now. That's why your sales pitch is going to help you, because you're a local craftsman. You've got a quality product. The bees are in your yard. Come out and look at my boxes. Talk about your bees, what's special, what crop is nearby. Develop that part of your sales part that says why you're worth what you are. And if they say, well, I can go to Best Buy and get it for $3 a pound. Thank you very much. And I'll see you next time. I appreciate you stopping by.
Same thing with nukes.
Yep.
I mean, what are you going to charge for your nuke?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Paul, what are you going to charge for a nuke?
I don't know. I want to see how many I can get going in the spring, and
No, you got to know what you want to know. What are you going to charge? Here's the thing. I stopped advertising in 1970.
Yep.
There is a man who started 15 miles from me. You know what he sells his nukes for? He sells his for 130, and I sell mine out at 175.
Yep.
And when I have people come here, they say, well, I can buy them from him for this much money. I said, then why are you here?
Yep.
They said, he comes out in a full bee suit and it scares me with his bees. your bees seem to be better. So, you know, you can spend money to advertise honey, or you can advertise nukes. Why do you think people become students? The name alone sells the product.
Yep.
You know, it's just like buying Walmart brand or buying Kroger brand. You bought a brand. So, you know, you can either spend the money and the time to build your product up, whether it's bees, queens, nukes, or honey. When a guy down the road was selling his honey, I went up $5 a mine.
Yep.
Yeah.
I really don't care if I sell it. I got a product. If he wants it, you know. And I
they
told him, I
want
said,
it.
bring that product and we'll taste it together. And you can tell me which is better.
Yep.
You know, so don't let people around you decide what your price is. Figure out where. You don't jump in your car and say, I'm going on vacation. You plan where you're going. So plan what you want to charge for these nukes.
Yeah.
You'll sell them no matter what the price is. Going nukes where you live probably going to go for $225 to $250.
At least.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid. And if you have to hold some till next year, they'll come back, and they'll come next year because they bought that package for $135 and it flew away, or the queen wasn't no good, or whatever, and you won't have any problem. It'll take you a year or two to get your reputation out there, but that's what you have to depend on, is your reputation of what your product, what you're selling.
Well, exactly. I mean,
And you're selling yourself. You're selling yourself as the beekeeper. And I wear a full suit, head to toe. I don't want to get stung. So I'm the one out there in the bee. You know, I got the whole thing.
I'm just getting my Botox.
Well,
yeah, but my Botox goes really bad.
I mean, even if, say, I wanted to sell 20 nukes and I only sell 10. And I have to overwinter 10. I mean, that's no loss for me anyway.
Not at all. And they'll be there next year. And my customers from this year bring people next year. They'll say, I got the lady, this is where we're going. This is where you're getting your bees. And so honestly, just remain confident.
That's
Develop
the
your
thing.
sales pitch.
Have the confidence in yourself.
Yeah.
Every student, whether I'm here or whether I'm not here, you can ask any one of my students. The first thing I try to teach them is that build boxes. You will never build enough boxes to take care of bees.
Yep.
Even though you have a lot of boxes, I keep bees in them. When you don't have bees in them, that means you're selling them. And when you sell them faster than you can make them, that's a good thing.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's not like I'm trying to sell 100 nukes. You know, I don't even want to look at that number yet. I just want to start out small, see what I can do, you know, and who knows what the future will bring.
You start out that way, but, you know, the problem is you develop a relationship with your buyer, and then they bring another one, and then it's hard to tell them. That's my biggest problem. I can't use that little word, no, I don't have any more. That's why I have so many empty boxes. One person will bring you 2 or 3 more, and then people are happy. They bring you 2 or 3 more. But when you have to spend more money on advertising, you know, your overhead's way too high.
Yeah.
A good product will sell itself, no matter if it's honey, queens, anything. Repeat business.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, Don. Thanks, Bob.
Okay. We got time for one more question. We're already in overtime. Dennis, go ahead.
Oh, we're time and a half.
Paul, I was just going to say, I just put one ad out on Craigslist, and I've now quit taking orders on nukes. They just, no one in my area was selling them, and I can't wait for the next couple of years. But so far, I get 175 where I'm at, and no one's bucking but a couple of them. The worst problem I have is these local, all within 100, 200 miles of me, are worried I'm going to outsell queens to them. They bring me in and resell them, and well, we'll let them worry about that. But just sell what you're comfortable with, hold what you don't have, and next year they'll go. All right. That's all I have.
All right. That'll do it for tonight. Don't forget, if you want to stick around for the open forum, I will leave the chat room open. I know last time, I think everybody chatted for a good hour and a half afterwards. So you're welcome to stay and chat. So good night, everyone.